Okay, good afternoon. Today's webinar is for Illinois Main Street communities. It's titled Lies, Damn Lies, and Reinvestment Statistics. Let the numbers do the talking. My name is Todd Tracy. I'll be hosting the event today. This is brought to you by InAlliance, part of their in-training portfolio of webinars. Before we get started today, I would like to just do a little bit of housekeeping. For those of you that have not attended the webinars before, we will take questions throughout the webinar. Most people choose to wait till the end to answer questions. A couple of different ways. You can raise your hand and use either your voiceover IP with your computer, or you are provided a call-in number in front of you that you can also call in. Most people choose just to simply raise their hand and write their question in the chat box, and feel free to do that. I will stop periodically through the presentation to answer questions if there are any. If not, I will wait till the very end and we will answer questions at that time. There are three kinds of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics. It's a quote from Mark Twain. He often referred to it as a way or a means of making the numbers work for you when they otherwise something doesn't look that attractive. But really, in other words, how we use it in today's world, just another way, a good term for a way of using good marketing skills. With your reinvestment statistics that you have through the Illinois Main Street program, these statistics are required by the National Trust Main Street Center nationally. They're also required by the Illinois Main Street program, and they are crucial to your local program to help you build cause for fundraising and partnerships, to quantify volunteerism, and to justify promotions. As a Main Street consultant, InAlliance often sees the reinvestment statistics from the viewpoint of the Main Street community as a burden. They often look upon them as either a monthly or quarterly requirement that benefits the state or the national program, and they don't see ways that they can use it to generate any type of benefit on the local level. And this is very much not the case. Main Street communities that choose not to complete reinvestment statistics or not complete them to their fullest extent oftentimes are not collecting the data that really is beneficial to their communities to not only justify their program, but to demonstrate the economic impact that they are having. As part of a nationwide program, every Main Street across the nation is part of a much bigger picture. To date, there's been $55.7 billion in reinvestment in Main Street communities across the nation. That's resulted in over 109,000 new businesses creating, and it's rehabbed over 236 buildings, all since 1980. By looking at this more global picture than locally, it shows the local stakeholders how that the Main Street community is a part of a bigger picture and a part of a bigger movement. And this oftentimes will help the Main Street programs not feel quite as isolated. Annually, just last year, the Main Street statistics for Illinois are provided here to you in front of you, with over nearly over $60,000, nearly $70 million invested last year alone in Main Street communities. We can see a very tangible economic impact that Main Street is bringing to us. We have many full-time and part-time employments. Businesses are opening, and to our satisfaction, more businesses are opening than did close. We've got several businesses that we're retaining. And of course, the amount of volunteer hours, over 53,000 volunteer hours alone last year were recorded. One thing I want to bring to your attention is you can see the Gold Star Awards to the right for the Main Street communities that had 100% of their reinvestment statistics recorded at the state level. Down at the bottom, there's the 99% recording. With over 43 communities in the state, we can see that there's very few that are making the grade by way of providing their statistics on a statewide level. This is a little alarming in a way, because these numbers, though they are pretty stellar and definitely show the accomplishment of the Main Street programs, we know from a statewide perspective that these numbers are not very well documented and could easily double, if not more. Using Quincy as an example, we see that the reinvestment statistics from last year alone, there was over almost $4,600,000 in investment in that community, creating 31 new businesses, creating over 110 jobs. Volunteer hours amassed nearly 2,500 hours last year in a single community alone. These quarterly reports and annual reports that's provided to you by the Illinois Main Street program helps give you validation, gives your program validation from the state that you're a part of not only the statewide program, but you're a part of the nationwide program. It gives you all the compliance that you need for the national reporting requirement. When we look at the value of the reinvestment statistics, virtually everything in there is tangible. In other words, it's quantifiable. It's a number related. Though there is some documentation required, some narrative that goes along with any of these numbers, the true numbers that are what we look at is the amount of investment, the number of businesses created, the number of buildings protected, and of course the number of jobs created or retained, and the volunteer hours it took to amass all this. These are all quantifiable numbers, all that are justified in the report, the reinvestment report, that though it may take you several hours to put together the information, it only takes a few minutes once those numbers are recorded to actually provide the report via the online service. When you're looking at stakeholders, when you're working with stakeholders, including local government individuals, you'll find that time and time again, they want to know what is the economic impact. Without giving clear numbers and precise numbers, sometimes the economic impact is glazed over by those that are requesting the information. Where do the numbers come from for the reinvestment statistics? Typically they come from city government, come from your county assessor. A lot of the more precise numbers and before they hit the public record comes from your local businesses and investors. They are the ones that know the exact amount that they have either expanded by or have initialized in order to see a project come to fruition. And of course your volunteers, they know how much time that they've spent on a project, and they can keep a log themselves as to the amount of hours that they attribute each month or each week to the program. All Main Street program budgets are a fraction of the impact that they have on their local economy. Having worked in several Main Street communities in my lifetime, I've not seen any program that didn't bring economic impact between 4, 5 to 10 times the amount of budget that they have been allocated. It's all attributed to the goal setting and hard work of the board in deriving and bringing together committees and volunteers, all under the assimilation and administration of a director. Though when it comes to a budget of a Main Street, oftentimes the director's salaries is the most largest line item on any particular budget. The justification for that salary in order for administration is often easily identified once the economic impact is determined. Question I pose to you: do you know the impact that you are having? In working with Main Street communities, we often ask this question. Sometimes we get tangible numbers, but more often than not we get intrinsic type answers. and saying, you know, we are helping indirectly to save these buildings. If it hadn't been for us, we wouldn't have these events. And yes, all that's true and definitely lends itself in narrative type functions and definitely works well in discussion purposes. It's something very difficult for when budgets are determined and when allocation is considered for fundraising. I challenge each of you to have these numbers readily available in your Main Street office. You should easily be able to say, for every dollar spent on running this local program, there's X amount of dollars that's reinvested in this community. And of course, break that down between private funds and public funds. Your private sector, when you're looking for donations and contributions, will often want to know what the other stakeholders are including the local forms of government. And vice versa, the local government wants to know if there's private investment into the organization. As we all know in Main Street, the partnership cannot happen unless there's a direct correlation and direct relationship between both private and public entities. Well, this may be simple math to some. I have found it to be difficult for others. Just by way of example, you want to make the math very simple so that for anyone, for any naysayer that might be out there, for anyone that's trying to, well, let's say check your numbers, make it very simple for them. Figure out your total annual budget. That includes all of your private and public offerings. And then figure out, by way of your reinvestment statistics that you've been collecting, how much private and public funds have been reinvested in the community last year. Now you can do this number on any manner, way, or speaking. If you choose to do it over a trend, just figure your annual budgets for the last 10 years and make sure that you've collected all of the investment statistics for the same time period. If you only have the last year, if you only have the last couple of years, then definitely make sure that your apples equal your apples and don't go out any further. For this example, this is a last year budget of $75,000 for a Main Street community. They were able to bring in $3,500 in private, or $3.5 million in private investment, $8.9 million in public investment, totaling $12.4 million last year in investment, all with a budget of $75,000. This number is actually close to an average that we would see in the Illinois Main Street program. For every dollar from this particular Main Street program, they were able to attract $46 in private funds, $118 in public, for a total of over $165 in investment. These are very hard numbers and very tangible numbers that you need to have readily available. At the conclusion of this webinar, I'll give you some ideas of how to make these more readily available in addition to your reports that you might be providing. Another statistic that I always like to throw out when we're talking about reinvestment statistics, though this is not something that is typically collected, for Main Street purposes, a chain retailer versus independent retailer, it's definitely a number that for recirculation of revenue is something that you need to have readily available. This particular graph is put together by the American Independent Business Alliance. There are at least 7 to 8 different variations of this that I know of, and perhaps there are more that have eluded me, but there's different determinations as to what the impact a chain retailer has locally as compared to an independent. These numbers are very good for any time that you do have a retailer that starts up, or if you're looking at retention. The recirculation of the revenue is 48% compared to recirculation of a chain revenue. Those are very hard numbers. Almost 50 cents on the dollar of every dollar that's invested with that private retailer, it gets redistributed back into the community for further redistribution. So this is a table and a graph that when you're doing math and presenting causes and showing the benefit of your local businesses, make sure to use these tabulations periodically. The salary and wage multiplier. Again, if we looked at different economic profilers that are out there, and definitely if we looked at different rural versus urban areas, as well as different geographic areas across the nation, this number would certainly vary. However, for all practical purposes for Illinois Main Street programs, remember that for every job that's created or retained in the Main Street district, that 35 to 40 cents of that is redistributed by each employee. Of course, that goes to housing, transportation, food, clothing, services, and of course their taxes. Again, if we use the previous graph, the stat of nearly 48% of revenue is redistributed, and this one, for all practical purposes, nearly 40% is redistributed. We see that slightly less than half of income is redistributed in the local economy. When you're out recruiting for board members, committee members, and volunteers, if you're just doing handshakes with them, and if you're just doing some sales pitch and relying on their understanding or what they can recall about your program, sometimes it becomes very difficult to sell your idea. You want to make sure that you have tangible benefits that they can see. Now, outside of the reinvestment statistics, there's all kinds of benefits that you can definitely sell to prospective individuals interested in supporting and helping your program. But you also want to make sure that you make your program very real and show that your program is very tangible in its outcomes. It makes it simpler for people to become a part of a program when they can see a dollar amount that they are actually contributing to by way of their volunteerism. Board members need to see that if they're going to sit on a board, that there's a prior history, that the Main Street program has been successful in growth. Most can look around the town, most can see those tangible efforts, but without a direct correlation, sometimes we hear that people on the street think, well, it just happened, or city government had more influence on it than anything else. But we all know that when it comes to the downtowns and when it comes to the main streets of this country, that the Main Street programs and the local individuals on the grassroots level are the ones that are directly causing this investment and growth and resurgence back into the Main Street. Committee members, as you often work with on a quarterly or annual basis, you work with them on developing work plans. Committee members take the work plans and they move forward with the work plans, and they have a goal at the top, and they have all these tasks and objectives that are associated with each goal. Oftentimes, these goals are elusive. Oftentimes, what the direct impact is difficult for them to see. If you can show them more physical, tangible, quantifiable data that says, hey, you moved from point 0 to the end of the program and you had these successes, it gives them worth. It helps them retain their interest in the program, and it helps them want to return to the program. Volunteers often want to see their value. Though some volunteers do not like to be have attention called to them, they just like to work behind the scenes and get their particular tasks accomplished for the program. Others like to have that pat on the back, and others like to say, hey, this is exactly what you provided for us. The reinvestment statistics collects that data. I've seen more city governments, especially when it comes to budget period, they look upon the amount of dollars that they are considering giving to the program as the be-all or end-all for a program. And they want and they see that those dollars may be going directly to contribute to a director's salary or wherever, or to handle the overhead and administration of the program, and they forget sometimes about all the work that has actually gone into the program outside of that single or single paid employee. Whenever you're looking at volunteer hours, you need to put in a tangible number in addition to those hours. Dollars always speaks more than heads or numbers of hours. In other words, the amount of bodies in a room that are working on a project in direct multiplication of the hours that they're spending on it, it does speak to some level. But when you multiply that, if you look down at the bottom left corner of this table, the volunteer as of 2011, and by the way, the numbers that are tabulated for volunteer hours are typically a year in arrears, just because it takes that long for the states, individual states, to provide tangible numbers to the people that to the industries out there that tabulate these type of non-for-profit numbers. But in Illinois, that translates to $23.19 per hour. Though we know that some of those wages may take in the metro areas and Cook County areas of in northern Illinois, it definitely wouldn't translate well to some of the lower waged areas in Illinois, such as southern Illinois and eastern Illinois. However, it's a good number to start with. Even if you knocked off $5 per hour, you're still within the lowest range that you would have for an Illinois volunteer. This number is derived from taking consideration of the amount of work of service and hourly waged employees that do similar type work except are paid, and of course then it's also upped. Increased by a benefit package that we have to always take in consideration. So when you multiply the number of hours that you have in your program, whether it be annually, quarterly, or whatever, by this number of $23.19, it's very easy to demonstrate to government employees and other stakeholders when you're attracting a portion of their budgets for your own, as the amount of leverage that you are actually bringing to the table. This particular number, by the way, I've given the source down at the bottom, came from independentsector.org. There's a couple of other resources out there for it. This is just one that I particularly like myself. Whenever you are conducting, preparing your reports and what have you, I always recommend that you prepare a quarterly report and of course an annual report. Quarterly report can mimic the annual report, especially by way of numbers if you so choose. Oftentimes, just for the sake of limited time, sometimes it's much more of a abbreviated report than the annual report, and just gives just the most pertinent statistics. I recommend that the reports that are given to you from the state, they be used. You can definitely take the numbers that you provide in the reinvestment statistics and interpolate those in your own way also. But instead of giving a dull style report, the state provides you with a quarterly report that gives just the down and dirty of the numbers by way of investments and economic impact and volunteer hours and what have you. I would take pieces of those statistics and intermix those in many of your press releases, adding a sentence or two. Showing if you're having, as by way of an example, if you're putting together an event that's coming up in the next couple of weeks, and you want to get some press out on it, what I would recommend that you do is take some of your reinvestment statistics that you have with other events. Say, this is our 5th event of the year. We have had, we plan on having 11 more before year end, just to show that the program is ongoing and it's never associated with any one particular activity that the Main Street does, that you're all encompassing when it comes to as an economic development entity. I recommend that you put some of the statistics or all your statistics on event cards or on table cards at many of your events, especially if you have tables or areas where that they might be seen. Include them in some of your advertisements. Include them in some of your posters that you may put around town. Again, putting all of your reinvestment statistics in every single press release and every single advertising medium, it can be quite redundant as well as distracting from the purpose of the initial program. Though I recommend that you host on your website links to your annual report and all your previous annual reports, and if you do quarterly reports, have those posted there as well. I recommend that you intermingle some of your more pertinent statistics throughout your website so that people that just don't really have interest in going and downloading a report and reading some cumbersome information. Matter of fact, anytime that you put the term report with something that often has a negative feeling of cumbersome or length, that people don't want to spend the time reviewing, or many people won't. So if you can throw some of your reinvestment statistics up in splashes throughout and intermingle those throughout your website, they have a much better chance of being seen. And of course, another great area for getting some of your reinvestment statistics out there is on all the social medias. I do not recommend that you create only links to your reports, even though that's definitely something that you should do. But in addition to that, take some of the more pertinent information and in your weekly, monthly, and quarterly posts that you do on your social media, make sure that you intermingle some of your statistics that shows the benefit that your program is having. Reports without graphs oftentimes do not have the visual effect that you truly are looking for. Almost every number that you provide in the reinvestment statistic can be thrown simply into a spreadsheet and used to graphically show what you're trying to say. Of course, in your reporting system with the state, on your online reporting system, you can extract all of your reports and all of your information via an Excel spreadsheet. So all of your data is readily available to you, and it'll take very little effort in order to convert that into a graph. Matter of fact, I would recommend that if you want to take the challenge, that nearly all of your data, turn it into some sort of graph at some point, and the data, I assure you, has a greater than 50% chance greater possibility of being read and understood. That's just a typical statistic that we know from a marketing point of view when we're trying to deliver data to the consumer. Your report distribution. This goes out to your local government, your stakeholders, other interested individuals, of course, to all your board members, volunteers, committee members. They need to have access to it. We recommend at a minimum to do at least a limited report quarterly, if not a full report. And of course, one annual report is sufficient. Another report that is probably of more benefit to you, especially when you're looking at from a budgeting perspective, is try to have a report that has a program to date information. Many of you can glean a lot of your information from the reporting system with the state. It is my understanding that some of the other data possibly could be out there held in another database for back to the early 90s for the state of Illinois. Just need to ask your program coordinator through the state program if they can retrieve that information for you if you choose to do a program to date. Of course, many of you have these in-house also. I recommend that in addition to the annual reports that you do locally, I recommend that you also provide, when available, the National Trust Main Street Center annual report so that you can show yourself as a part of the bigger picture. and of course take the Illinois Main Street quarterlies and annual reports and make those a part of your presentation as well. The problems that some Main Street communities have that we have seen is that they have they're looked upon as being an isolated program. Sometimes they're looked at being isolated outside of the city form of government. The government might look upon the program as a burden on their budget, and not really seeing the direct impact that they're gaining. Sometimes the city doesn't realize that program directors, volunteers, committee members are gaining valuable information and getting training from outside the program, whether it be at the state resource level or at the National Main Streets Conference or wherever that they might be attending. They're bringing a lot of information back to the community, and more times than not, they're actually utilizing that information to build economic impact for the community. By providing all reports, it shows that there is a correlation between the local program through the state all the way to the national level. And it shows what the economic impact is nationally and statewide, as opposed to only on the micro level of the local community. And of course, make sure that any report that you provide, make sure, and I recommend this with any report that a Main Street program ever produces, that it all be published on the website and put in a place where it can easily be found. By way of a note as to where the Illinois Main Street program is at, the reporting of reinvestment statistics are required monthly by the 15th of the following month. Reporting from the next month on, so for the report will be due May 15th of this month for April's data. You will not be able to post in it past the 15th. However, I will bring to your attention that there will be a short grace period applied to the 15th, but it is a very short window. So in your calendar, make sure that you mark that the reports are due the 15th of the month for the previous period. And again, I want to assure you that the state and the national level sees the reports being a part of the requirement for accreditation and to be identified as a Main Street community. One of the more positive things that's coming down for you is that there's going to be a very cool and beneficial incentive given out to the communities and programs that have 100% compliance with giving out reports. More on this will be given to you at a later date. Okay, that concludes our webinar for the day. I will open it up for questions now. Please raise your hand or type in a question and I will call on you. Okay, while you're thinking of your questions, our next webinar will include information on how to record data for the events that you might have. That webinar will be on May 9th from 1:30 to 2:30. Again, there will be no password requirement for these webinars, and they are limited to Illinois Main Street directors, volunteers, board members, and committee members. If there's not any other questions, I will go ahead and sign off. This program has been oh, I do have a question. Okay, one of the questions that we've got is, can you share some of the best practices for getting business owners to give you the information, employees, dollars, etc.? There's many ways of collecting this data. One of the most crucial ways out there is to make sure that you have a good rapport with the business owners. I recommend instead of going to them and saying you need this for a report or anything like that, to have more conversation with your business owners in the community. Keep a mental note that you are collecting the information for a report, but do this periodically. Business owners are much more likely to give you information if they feel it's just between you and them. Of course, let them know at the end of the conversation and say, hey, is there any, you've shared with me some information here, giving the number of employees you have, business retention, that type of thing. It's not brought to you specifically. Can I use that information? Of course, it's always good if you have a form that they can sign off on, but typically that's not necessary. You really don't have to have a form if you always assure them that their name is not going to be used specifically with any pertinent information that they might give you. Another thing that you can do is you can also hold contests and that type of thing for who's got the most employees, who's got the least employees, who's got the employees retained the longest, that type of thing, and you can hold those on an annual basis. And you can just say that you collect this information monthly. It all goes into a formal tabulation at the end that you can use to give away, either Main Street bucks, or you can give away, some sort of a nice a gift of some kind that shows that the businesses are being rewarded for giving you, good information. Another best practice that comes to mind right offhand is have a place that people can fill this out online. If you have work with your web director, your website manager, see if there's a place that they can fill out a form online. Also send them email and see if you can get it back from them. And don't forget one of the most easiest ways that people are communicating right now, just a simple text. And do one text, how many employees do you have right now? And then send it over, how much do you have retained? Just make it very, very simple to get that information. When it comes to amount of investment that you have, there's usually not a problem in talking with the bank about that information, especially if the bank knows that you have a relationship with the business owner. If it's a lot of times what we recommend is that the Main Street director or Main Street, whoever's working advocate, contact the business owner and say, hey, is it okay if I collect some of the investment statistics from your bank? And typically the bank will talk over the businesses, and it's not a problem. That's some of the best practices that I see out there. Like I said, this becomes the most the most used data, the most easily acquired data is when that you collect the data in more conversational settings than making it more formal. However, formal does work for others. We have another question out there that says, will this be available for later viewing? Yes, our first webinar that we did for Illinois Main Street a couple weeks ago, it is up on the illinoismainstreet.org website under resources. This one will be up and available in a short amount of time also. Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, I think I've answered everything. You have my contact information in front of me. Feel free to shoot me an email, give me a call, send me a text, as we talked about. Be glad to reply to you with additional information regarding this topic today. We'll wish you a good lunch and a good afternoon, and we'll talk to you soon.